Good morning, everyone. So today is the sorry. Today is the second part of our resiliency lesson. So when you're stuck, the problem that you face takes over your mind, right? It gets really, just like everything else disappears, and it's all you can think about. So, for example, the scenarios that we talked about in the last lesson. So Melanie, because she was struggling with her chemistry class, she's going to think about how much she dislikes chemistry, right? Remember, maybe every time she goes to chemistry class, she's just like, oh God, I gotta go to chemistry class. I wanna, you know what I mean? So maybe every time she goes to her chemistry class, she kind of gets overwhelmed with like a sense of dread, which could affect your day to day, right? So, for example, like that's an example. Because then also Ryan will think about how the pain he feels from like losing his girlfriend, right? So when we're struggling and when we're stuck, our brain fixates on these things that we're missing or we're struggling with or that are negative in our life or that are is not bringing us joy. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, a little bit more about resiliency and what that looks like. Okay. So to get unstuck, the important thing is to focus on the solution, right? The tendency is to focus on the negative, okay, which is something that is just like human nature. We all do that. If we had a good day and there was one negative thing that happened that day, we're more likely to fixate on that negative part of the day, okay? So to get unstuck, it's important to focus on the solution, not the problem, okay? So otherwise, you could be stuck for a long time. So these are the examples of what these two students can do, Melanie and Ryan. So what she could do instead of just being in that space of feeling like she's hopeless and there's nothing to support her moving forward, or if there's nothing she can do to move forward, what she could do is ask her chemistry teacher to retake the final, right? Advocate for herself. She could talk to her teacher to see if there is a way to get extra credit. And she could also find colleges that will still accept her because the colleges are all different. They all have different requirements to get admitted. So that's an option that she could have, right? So in Ryan's situation, he could join a new sports team to get his mind off things. So he's missing his girlfriend, right? And in some cases, we are just yearning for connection, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be with another person necessarily, or if you can't be with that person, sometimes it helps to just be with someone that would help us build that connection, right? Just like a friend, a family member, somebody that just makes us feel like a little less lonely. Okay, so being in a sports team might be something that would be a good step for him. He could also spend more time with his friends and family. So that's another example of just like building connection elsewhere. And he could start dating someone else. That's an option, right? So these are all things that could allow him to get unstuck, him and her, Melanie and Ryan, okay? So many people give up because it's frustrating, right? And growth is hard. So like, for example, like if your math class is too hard, maybe a book takes too long to read, what do you do when you get frustrated? So we had those back a couple weeks ago. We did those not yet can do circles. Okay. So when we made these, we considered the things that we were able to do and the things that we wanted to do, but yet we weren't quite there, right? The circle was set up in a way that was like you grow in the can do circle and then you sort of build out into the not yet circle. Okay. So there is a point where those meet, those two circles, and that's called your grit point. Okay, so that's the point where you're probably familiar with the term grit. Okay, and we're gonna watch a quick video here to refresh your memory in case you forgot. Okay, so we're gonna play this Maui video about grit, and grit is your power to keep it going when things are challenging. Okay.
I want to share a very special photo with you right now. This is the best friend I had when I was in high school. He's my brother, Twelde. And my brother and I were so close, I can't even describe it to you. We were refugees together in Sudan after my family fled the war in Ethiopia. We came to the United States together and learned English together. We learned all the American sports together, like basketball. He was just my best friend. And when he was a senior in high school, something horrible happened. It was my sophomore year, and a drunk driver slammed into my brother's car when my brother was driving and killed my brother. And so I never saw my brother after his senior year. And I gotta tell you, when this challenge hit me, I just felt like giving up. I had all these goals and dreams of where I wanted to go in life, but they just felt like they could not be accomplished. And here's what it felt like. It felt like this. Like all I could see is the pain. All I could see is the challenge. And I thought to myself, I will never be happy again. And I'm telling this story to you, even though it's not an easy story for me to share, because you will feel the same way sometimes. And I hope something this bad never happens to you, but you will face challenges. And when you do, you're going to feel like there's no hope, right? I want you to know, keep that hope alive. The reason that I'm standing in front of you as a Harvard graduate is because that sophomore year, when I felt like giving up, I kept going. I always say, there's no more important time for you to do your best than when you feel your worst, right? That's when you rise to the occasion. And you don't have to do it by yourself. Rely on your coaches, rely on your parents, on your family, on your teachers. There's so many kind and wonderful people. I discovered that in this country. So many amazing people you can reach out to. So don't feel like you have to do it by yourself. The other thing I recommend to you is when you're going through challenges like I did, like don't just go into your room and hide out there. What helped me was I stayed on the track team. I stayed on the cross country team. I did things in my school and that helped me process things. So I wasn't just by myself. You will face challenges sometimes. And when you face those challenges, it doesn't mean you can't reach your goals. It doesn't mean that you can't achieve. It means that, hey, this is going to be a time where you have to process some of this pain, where you may have to work harder, but you absolutely can come out of it bigger, stronger, and better. I truly believe that.
Okay, so when you try to grow, you will sometimes face that grit point. Okay, so the goal is to not give up, to keep pushing forward, and that's that resiliency we're talking about. Okay, so instead, you can ask for help, you could try harder, you can find a way to grow. Okay, and so for the example here, we have Nico, right? So he's always gotten C's in math. He sets his goal to get an A. Okay, the next week he does his homework and tries to pay attention in class. But on his first quiz, he gets a C. So he's at his grit point. At this point, he could be like, I've already put all this effort in, and then I didn't get to a point where I wanted to be, right? So he can give up. He's not getting the grade that he wants, okay? Which could be frustrating and can sometimes push us to just want to back off entirely and not try anymore, okay? But instead of giving up, he tries harder on his homework, right? He keeps pushing forward. He also gets tutoring once a week from his teacher. Nico keeps working hard for months, and he gets his first A in math. So his grit finally pays off. Okay, so this is an example of someone who has a problem. And it shows how easy it is to decide to give up, right? Because you're like, if I've already put this effort in and I didn't get where I wanted to be, that's that grit point. Okay, or do we stop trying, or do we push even harder? Because that's what it takes. It takes, in his case, he gets tutoring once a week. All of your teachers currently offer office hours. Okay, so if you are struggling in a course, you have options. You can get that one-on-one support after school. You can try a little harder on your homework. If you don't quite understand something, you could ask your teacher after class to set up a time and you could meet to discuss what you're struggling with. Okay, these things are options for you as well. So if you're in a situation like Nico's in and you're not getting the grade that you want on your test or any of your tests, then these are options for you too. Okay, so sometimes you can actually show grit by making a change. So for example, let's say our big goal involves playing a sport at your school and you try out and you don't make the team. Okay, we'll just give an example, basketball team. Okay, so does being gritty mean you practice all year and try out for the best basketball team next year? It could, right? Being gritty also means that you know when to adjust to find a new sport, right? So you try out for the soccer, volleyball, or baseball team, right? Growing often means making adjustments. So it's not just like, okay, I need to keep at it at basketball. Sometimes we have to recognize that maybe that's not our sport, okay? So in his case, it didn't work the first time, so he adjusted. In his case, adjusting was like adding more things, right? Adding more ways to get a better grade to help improve his situation, okay? But it's not always adjusting within that realm, right? Sometimes it's adjusting and recognizing, okay, maybe basketball is not the sport that I should be playing. Maybe volleyball's my thing, okay? All right, so that is an example of you could focus on the problem and that you can get stuck. And then for him, he added to the solution by finding new ways to improve his situation. What would have happened if Nico did give up? Okay. Oh my god. So what do you think would have happened if he didn't try harder to pass his class? So when we talk about the solution and he's like, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to start tutoring. I'm going to ask my teacher for help. I'm going to do my homework. All those things allowed him to get to the place he wanted to be. But what if he gave up? What would have happened? Okay, so after hearing his story, I want you to think about what would have happened if he gave up and talk about it with your class or write it in your journal, whatever your teacher wants to do. Okay, so I would just reflect a little bit on like what his path would have looked like if he didn't continue on. What do you think would have happened? Okay, so write that down in your journal or talk about it with the person next to you. Okay, and we'll see you next time, guys.